Hey guys, welcome to the channel. As you see in the thumbnail, what if Issei become a god of darkness part 1. Before I start, please do support for more awesome content and subscribe my channel and like this video and also share this video with your friends. I have created my other videos playlist, there you can watch my all videos easily, check out as well. Let's start this video. At the beginning of the universe, there was ageless chaos. The earth was formless and void, and darkness was over the surface of existence. Then God said, "Let there be light." And there was light, and God saw that the light was good, and so separated the light from the darkness. The darkness resented this, and so bitterness and spite were born before time itself. Due to the darkness's resentment of God, it became an enemy of heaven itself. The darkness found a way to get back at God through his greatest creations, humans. The darkness rooted itself into a human soul, giving that very human access to its godlike powers over the night itself. The darkness paved its way through history, leaving death, destruction and pain in its wake. Its hosts being the focal point of it. Over the span of thousands of years, passing from one vessel to another, each generation gaining more power than the last. But the bloodline that carried the darkness had ended in a devastating fight between the righteous light and the corrupting dark. The two opposing forces destroyed themselves. But they were reborn, because there will always be light and there will always be dark. But the bloodline hosting the darkness gone, the dark entity had to find another host. It searched and searched, looking for a human enough power and durability that could contain its vast powers. After watching the abominations, the supposed warriors of light and the betrayers light fight, the darkness eventually found a prefect host. It was an orphan boy whose parents abandoned him. The boy, while looking average, carried a large power sealed within him, a being that could double his power at a quick rate. The young child slept, having naive dreams. Next to the child a shadow grew, two glowing yellowish orange eyes. The eyes focused on the child. A humanoid figure formed itself out of the dark, looking like a demonic green, black, silver and yellow armored being. The darkness glanced around and noticed several adults that were watching the children pass over it, like it didn't exist. The embodiment of darkness focused on the child. Haha, the darkness laughed to itself. With the angelus host lesson healing, I have free roam. The dark entity said to itself as it placed a clawed hand on the child's chest. With God dead, I don't have to follow his rules. Haha, a new start. The darkness said as its clawed arm began to sink into the child's chest. These angels are weak. Their own brethren have fallen, and these abominations who think they're the morning star are pathetic. The darkness continued as its entire arm sunk into the child's chest. You and I, little human, will show them what a monster is you, and I will remind every being on this pitiful planet why they should fear the dark. The darkness finished as it fully merged into the child's chest. 12 years later. Issei quickly sat up from his sleep and grabbed his chest before he allowed his arms to relax. After a few seconds he brushed a hand through his dark brown hair. Issei glanced at his clock and noticed it was early in the morning before he sighed when he remembered the dream he had. That dream, Issei thought to himself. He had that dream dozens of times and was convinced it was a memory. He had tons of different dreams. Dreams where he was a king of an old land, until he became a tyrant. He dreamed he was a pirate captain where he pillaged the seas. He had dreams he was an assassin, a criminal hitman. He dreamed the most about being a hitman for the mafia, until he became its ruler. But all those dreams, they had one thing in common, they had the darkness in them. He had no idea what it was, but he knew deep down that that's what it's called. Issei stood up and glanced around before he grabbed a fresh pair of clothes and headed towards his shower. After he showered, he dressed and walked into his living room apartment. Issei glanced around his apartment, it was decent. Well, anything was decent compared to the orphanage. He had a small apartment with a small kitchen, bedroom, bathroom and a small living room. Issei walked over to his school bag and looked through it before he frowned. It's not here, I could have sworn I put it here. Issei said to himself before he glanced around. Issei saw a reflective object in his kitchen. The teen walked into the kitchen and on the countertop was a chromed Colt M1911. Oh, there you are. Issei voiced as he picked up his pistol and inspected it before he placed it in a hidden compartment in his school bag. He never left his home without protection, especially with the people he worked with. Issei took one last glance at his apartment before he turned off the lights and left. While exiting the apartment complex, Issei saw the building was dark, secluded, and several of the walls were covered in graffiti. The teen just glanced at the building before he headed toward school. The teen walked past several shady individuals without a care. While a normal teen would be wary of such people, Issei wasn't. He knew they wouldn't mess with him, especially because of his part-time job. After he left the orphanage at a young age, he ran into what could be described as the wrong crowd. He didn't do drugs or that type of shit. He worked for some of the higher tier criminals, like the crime bosses. He really had no allegiance to any of them, if they paid well he did what they asked. The jobs usually involved getting money from deadbeats who were holding out and occasionally killing a snitch. He honestly didn't really care. He was pretty ruthless when he had to be, already making his first kill when he was 14. The only thing he didn't do was offend children or women, call him chivalrous, naive or idiotic, those were his personal rules. That was his part-time job anyway. It paid the bills and allowed him to enjoy his life. Issei placed his hands in his pockets and headed towards Kuo Academy. I really have to thank Garth. Issei thought. While he was smart and had some money, he didn't have enough of both to attend the academy. Issei glanced around and noticed groups of teens around his age arrived at the academy, causing the teen to sigh. I hope that my job will end soon. The teen thought to himself. Issei honestly didn't care about going to school, but his other job sorta demanded it. While his part-time job gave Issei a cash flow, his other job didn't have much of an income. Hunting supernatural creatures that no one knew existed didn't really pay well. While researching his dreams and the darkness, Issei found lots of references on other creatures and incidents, mostly in America. So after a few months of saving up, Issei made a trip to the country. During that time Issei ran into a group of people that called themselves hunters. Hunters were a group of humans that hunt down supernatural beings, like monsters, ghosts, demons, that kind of stuff. Most of the hunters had a tragedy that happened to them, usually involving the supernatural. After that they would hunt the creatures down. After Issei met some of the hunters, most of them shut him out because he was a teen. But he did meet a few cool hunters, one being Garth Fitzgerald. While Issei thought Garth had a few screws loose, he knew Garth was dependable. Issei researched as much as he could about the supernatural world and the darkness before he headed back to Japan. When he was back in Japan, Issei had looked for the hunters that lived in the area and found they were mainly older and less than the American outfit, so he decided to become a hunter for this region. Issei sighed as he sat at a tree and relaxed in the dark shadows. The teen looked around the campus with narrowed eyes. He'd been at the academy for little over a year now, but he had yet to encounter any supernatural creatures. Where are they? Issei thought. Almost all his intel pointed to supernatural activities going on in this area, but nothing's happened since he arrived. The only thing abnormal here is how people act. Soon after Issei scoped the area, he leaned back and dug into his school bag and pulled out a journal. The journal contained most of the information he gathered on the creatures he killed and on how he killed them. Issei flipped through the pages until he reached the last 2 pages, where there were 2 drawings. Both of them were recurring beings in his dreams, one being the darkness, and other was the Angelus. If Issei were to be honest, he'd admit the Angelus was hot as hell, even if the darkness and Angelus were enemies. Issei took out a pencil and began to touch up the drawings. The darkness and the Angelus, the dark and the light mortal enemies, yet they complete each other. I wonder why they can't see that. Issei thought to himself. He knew their story, his dreams were very vivid. It was like he was watching someone else's life through his eyes. Issei felt someone sit next to him, causing the teen to turn and face who sat next to him. He saw it was a petite girl with white hair and hazel eyes, wearing the usual female Kuo Academy uniform. Of course he knew her as Kaneko. Issei glanced at her before he went back to drawing. He honestly had no idea why Kaneko sat near him. Halfway through the year she spontaneously began to sit next to him. Kaneko glanced at Issei. Her job was to watch Issei, who showed up almost out of nowhere. Riaz had ordered her to investigate Issei, but nothing came up. But every devil in the area could feel the dark aura radiating off of Issei. While the devils had a dark aura themselves, Issei had what could be described as the darkest. Riaz had sent Kiba, Akeno, and even Riaz herself to spy on Issei. But when any of them got near Issei, the shadows themselves twitched in irritation. It seemed Riaz and Akeno irritated them the most though. Riaz had no idea what could cause something like that, but it seemed the shadows reacted less to Kaneko's presence, so she sent her to observe Issei. Kaneko had difficulty being near Issei at first. There was this feeling of primal fear that she got whenever she was near him. The same fear she had of the dark when she was little. But after a few weeks the fear just stopped. Kaneko looked over Issei's shoulder and watched him draw what looked like a demon and an angel. Issei cast a glance at the girl before he sighed and continued to draw. While he would admit Kaneko was annoying in the beginning, he could say he tolerated her presence. He really couldn't stay mad or even think of getting mad at her. She was a year younger than him, and he'd say she was cute. There was also the fact that Issei noticed she didn't have many friends. Maybe she was lonely and sat next to him because of it. He didn't know, so he didn't tell her to leave. "What are you drawing?" Kaneko asked in a quiet voice. She was curious what the 2 beings were, causing Issei to look at the white-haired girl. "You wouldn't be interested," Issei stated before he returned to drawing. "I'm in the occult club, I like strange things," Kaneko stated. "They're the darkness and the Angelus," Issei informed, causing Kaneko to frown slightly in confusion. She never heard of them. "What's Angelus?" Kaneko questioned, causing Issei to look at her in slight shock. He'd never heard her speak more than a few sentences. The Angelus is the equal and opposite to the darkness. The light of creation, when God created light, she was the result. Issei voiced. Kaneko flinched slightly at the mention of God before she looked at the drawing of the Angelus. The Angelus? I've never heard of an angel like this. Maybe Rias will know. Kaneko thought to herself. Is the Angelus an angel? Kaneko asked, getting a slight snort from Issei. She may look like an angel, but she's anything but. Issei commented before he looked at Kaneko. Why the sudden interest? You've never talked to me this much before. Issei questioned. I'm curious. Kaneko started quietly while looking down slightly. Understandable. Issei nodded. If you want, I could answer some questions. Issei offered, trying to cheer the girl up. He never really talked to anyone here, mostly because everyone here was weird. His first interaction with the students was when two weird boys ran up to him and pointed while yelling he was a dark prince that was stealing all the girls. He sort of blocked them out after that and walked away. That'd be nice. Kaneko muttered. Cool, do you have any other questions? Issei asked as he turned and faced the white-haired girl. Where did you learn this? Kaneko questioned with a slight tilt of her head. Around. Issei voiced, it would be really weird to say you learned it from your dreams. Kaneko narrowed her eyes slightly at the answer. What's in your journal? Kaneko asked. The teen in front of her was an unknown, getting him to open up would be a perfect way to see if he was a threat or not. Oh, just some things I collected, from myths to stories. Issei half answered, again it'd be weird to say it was a book full of instructions on how to kill monsters. What kind of stories? Kaneko queried. The supernatural. Issei stated, causing Kaneko to look at the journal. Then I see it. Kaneko asked as she motioned to the book. Before Issei could turn her down, a bell rang signaling the start of school. I'm sorry Kaneko, but it seems fate has other plans. Issei said as he stood up and flinched slightly when he left the shadows and stood in the sun. Would you want to meet up again? Kaneko asked if she could get him to open up, then it's possible to learn what's creating the dark aura and see if Issei was a threat. The teen sent a sideways glance to her. Sure. Issei voiced as he walked away. Kaneko watched Issei leave and noticed his shadow was twitching erratically. My Kaneko-san, you finally made some progress. Kaneko heard Akeno say, causing the white-haired girl to turn and face her superior. I have. Kaneko stated apathetically. And only after a few months, it's truly a great feat. Akeno teased. Says the girl who's afraid of his shadow. Kaneko replied. Touché. Akeno voiced. Issei walked through the hallways of the school and snapped his journal shut, revealing a symbol on the cover, the Key of Solomon, otherwise known as a devil's trap, before he placed his journal back in his school bag. Issei walked into his classroom and sat in the back and watched as teens flood in through the door. After a few minutes of mindless talking, the students took their seats and listened to the lecture the teacher gave. Issei rested his head in his left hand and glanced out the window, only partially listening to the teacher. He only attended this school because of the abundance of rumors of supernatural activity going on around here, and he knew with his luck that if he ditched that's when shit would go down. So he had to wait. But he felt something though, like something was going to happen soon. After a few hours school ended. Issei walked to the entrance exit of the school and saw Kaneko standing near there. Kaneko. Issei said with a nod, acknowledging that he saw her there. Kaneko faced Issei and looked at him expectantly. What? Issei asked. Journal. Kaneko voiced, getting a confused look from Issei. Huh? The teen sounded. Earlier, I asked if I could see your journal. You never answered. Kaneko stated, causing Issei to sign and rub the back of his neck. I don't know, really. I don't really know you that well. Issei said as he began to walk, with the younger girl following. I don't know you that well either. Kaneko replied. You're always so reclusive and rarely ever talk to anyone. She added. It's because they don't like anyone that much. And you're one to talk, I see you alone too. Well, except when you're with the redhead and the blonde dude. Issei said, causing Kaneko's eyes to widen slightly. She didn't think he'd be that observant. You said you don't like anyone that much. So what do you think of me? Kaneko asked, earning a shrug from the teen. To be honest, I thought you were annoying. Issei voiced, causing the white-haired girl to deflate slightly. While she was supposed to gather info on Issei, she didn't know she was a bother to him. But, after a while I began to see you as an acquaintance. I noticed you didn't talk to anyone, so I thought you deserved the company and I decided not to tell you to leave. Issei admitted. Kaneko was surprised by the revelation but hid. From what she heard from Rias and Kiba, they couldn't find anything officially out of the norm on Issei. But they heard lots of rumors saying that he was a ruthless person who could be mistaken for a demon, but they never understood why. The sources were very tight-lipped in that regard. Thanks. Kaneko voiced quietly. No problem. Issei said dismissively. The two continued to walk. Kaneko glanced around trying to think of a way to keep the conversation going while Issei zoned out. Do you usually just walk around doing nothing? Kaneko asked. Only while someone's with me. Issei commented snidely before he cast a glance at Kaneko to see she was looking down, causing the teen to sigh. Not that there's anything wrong with that. Issei added. He never did like hurting women, physically or emotionally. While he was a kid he would admit he was extremely perverted, but no one wants to hire a perverted assassin. So he had to channel that desire into another outlet. Being chivalrous not only made him more respectable, it also attracted some women as well. Issei glanced at Kaneko to see she was still looking down. Look, Kaneko. I apologize for coming off. Issei began trying to come up with a word. Hostile, aggressive, standoffish. Kaneko listed. Yes, any of those, I just give off that disposition. I really just don't like talking in general. Issei admitted. I understand. Kaneko said she too didn't really like to talk to people. She only talks when it is required. I think we both agree that we don't know each other well. How about we change that? Kaneko offered. Issei glanced at the white-haired girl. Yeah, sure, whatever. He agreed, getting a slight smile from the girl. Issei looked at Kaneko. It's been bothering me, so tell me the truth here, is your hair naturally white? He asked, getting a deadpan look from Kaneko. Yes, idiot. Kaneko replied. Hey, to be fair, I have never met someone with naturally white hair. Issei said, defending himself. Which was true, he'd seen lots of things in his short life, mostly monsters both of the human kind and the supernatural kind. But he'd never seen white hair. Still, it's rude to ask things like that. Kaneko stated. Alright, let it go, I was just curious. Issei voiced. Kaneko glanced at Issei when they both entered a shady area. While she could defend herself against any humans that would try to hurt her, she still didn't like the place. Were we here? Kaneko asked. You said you wanted to know me. Issei stated. So we're going to my place, I doubt you'd let me into your place. So, I guess that'd be my job then. He finished. You trust me in your home? Kaneko asked, surprised. There's not much you can do really. Issei said. I doubt you'd attack me in my place. Only thing you could do is give that information out or rob it at night. He added uncaringly. Issei really didn't care about his place. He was just living there until he finished his investigation on the supernatural here. Kaneko pouted slightly when Issei said there wasn't much she could do, but the boy didn't notice. Eventually the duo arrived at an apartment complex that was covered in graffiti. Kaneko looked at the complex with a slight abhorrence. This place is where Kaneko began trying to not be too insulting, but also trying to give her honest opinion. Shit. Issei completed, causing Kaneko to flicker slightly. That's the only word she could come up with, and he guessed it. Don't worry, I'm not offended. This is a place where I live, this isn't my home. Issei stated. The two stood at the entrance of an apartment. Kaneko looked down the hallway as Issei unlocked the door. After the door was open the two walked in. Kaneko narrowed her eyes slightly when she felt something weird but dismissed it. Kaneko looked around Issei's apartment before she focused on Issei, who was sitting on his couch looking through his bag. The white-haired girl stood around awkwardly before Issei motioned for her to sit next to him. Kaneko walked towards Issei but stopped halfway to him. This confused the girl. She tried to move forward again, but again felt something stop her. A gasp got her attention. Kaneko turned to see Issei staring at her, but his eyes trailed upwards, causing her to look up too. She saw a circle with a pentacle in the center, along with sigils surrounding the pentacle star. I've heard stories of how twisted demons were. But to possess such a young girl is sickening. Issei said to himself as he pulled out his hunter's journal before he glared at Kaneko. Kaneko herself was confused. What is that? Are you an exorcist? You're outside of your jurisdiction. Issei looked at Kaneko like she was an idiot. Exorcist? No, I'm a hunter. What the hell are you talking about jurisdiction? Issei asked with a disgusted face. And, are you an idiot? You're trapped in a devil's trap. I thought all demons knew of their weakness. Issei added. Kaneko looked at Issei in confusion. She had no idea what a devil's trap was, and she had no idea what a hunter was. Look, Issei, I'm not a demon. I'm something else. Kaneko voiced as she put her hands up in a disarming manner. Issei sounded as he quickly looked through the pages of his journal. Ah, found it. Issei muttered. Issei, you have to listen to me. Kaneko insisted. I'm not what you think I am. She said forcefully. Yes. Issei said absently. Now forgive me, my Latin is a bit rusty. Exorcism est, omnis amunda spiritus, omnis satanica potestas, omnis incursio infernalis adversari, omnis legio, omnis congregatio et secta diabolica. We drive you from us, whoever you may be, unclean spirits. All satanic powers, all infernal invaders, all wicked legions, assemblies and sects, Issei read from his hunter's journal. Kaneko shifted when she felt the center of her chest burn slightly. Ergo, Draco maledictet omnis legio diabolica, adjuramus te cessa desipere humanas creaturas, I scedini perditionis venenum propinare. Thus, cursed dragon, and you, diabolical legions, we adjure you stop deceiving human creatures and pouring out to them the poison of eternal damnation. Issei continued. The center of Kaneko's chest started to gleam an ominous red, and a shadowy outline of a chest piece formed. Vade, inventor et magister omnis fallaciae, hostis humani salutis begone, Satan, inventor and master of all deceit, enemy of man's salvation, Issei continued, and Kaneko started to visibly grimace when she felt the burning in her chest increase. Humiliate sub potenti manu Dei, contramus et effuge, invocado anaba sancto et terribili nomine. Stop beneath the all-powerful hand of God, tremble and flee when we invoke the holy and terrible name, Issei voiced, and Kaneko closed her eyes tightly and clenched her fists. Ab insidious diaboli, libera nos, domini. Ad ecclesiam tuum secura tibi facias libertate servire, tiragamus, audi nos from the snares of the devil, deliver us, O Lord. That thy church may serve thee in peace and liberty, we beseech thee to hear us. Issei finished as he took a deep breath before he focused on Kaneko. To see she was panting slightly. What? I expected black smoke. Issei said to himself. Kaneko caught her breath and focused on Issei. What was that? Kaneko questioned, causing Issei's eyes to widen. That was an exorcism, but how are you still here? I said everything right. Issei demanded before he read the page. Like I said, I'm not what you think I am. Kaneko insisted, causing Issei to look to her before his eyes glanced up to the devil's trap. Only a demon could be trapped by a devil's trap. But a demon would have been exorcised by that incantation. What are you? Issei asked with narrowed eyes. I'm a devil. Kaneko stated. Oh, shit. Oh shit, oh shit. Issei said to himself as he paced in front of the white-haired girl. Oh shit, not only did I catch a demon, but I caught the devil. Issei announced to himself. The devil actually. Kaneko corrected. The devil. Issei almost yelled. There are more of you? Issei asked almost in shock, getting a nod from Kaneko. How does that make any sense? Issei questioned. I thought the devil was Lucifer, how are there more of you? Issei asked, thoroughly confused. If you let me go, I will explain. Kaneko said. Ah, that was a good one. Free a being that could kill me in an instant. Yeah, I'd rather not. Issei responded. I don't want to kill you. Kaneko stated. I had a lot of opportunities to kill you though, but I didn't because I don't want to hurt you. When she finished, Issei glanced at her with a conflicted look. How do I know, huh? Devils are supposed to be deceivers. Issei replied, causing Kaneko to sigh. Issei glanced around and went into his kitchen. Kaneko watches curiously as Issei brings a container of salt out of his kitchen and creates a circle of salt around him. Fine, I'll give you the benefit of the doubt. But I won't hesitate to attack if you do something suspicious. Issei said as he pulled a knife out and reached up and scratched the circle of the devil's trap. Kaneko's eyes widened slightly when she felt all her power return to her. Salt? Kaneko asked as she looked at the ring of salt surrounding Issei. You really don't know? Salt has natural cleansing properties and is able to repel spirits and demons because they're considered unclean. Issei informed before he sat in the circle of salt. Kaneko looked at salt with some curiosity. She had heard of crosses, holy water and light harming devils, but she never knew salt worked like that too. Kaneko looked away from the salt and sat on the couch. Issei head and faced him. I'm a devil. A devil is a being that makes pacts with humans for a price in order to gain power. Kaneko explained. Like a crossroads demon. Issei stated, getting a confused look from Kaneko. A demon that you meet at a crossroads, you sell your soul to one for a wish. Issei clarified. We don't ask for souls. Kaneko replied, getting a surprised and a relieved look from Issei. Good, then what do you ask for in compensation? Issei questioned, causing Kaneko to look down slightly in thought. Trying to find a good and easy way to explain what they get. You know that there's certain energy from faith? Kaneko asked, getting a nod from Issei. With faith some people can do amazing things. Well, religion is fed by faith. Devils are the same, but we are powered by desire. Kaneko explained. When we complete a contract, we get that human desire, and the more we get the stronger we become. She stated. I see. Issei muttered. That really made sense, and it was more efficient than the Crossroads demon's ways of things, only one wish per soul. How does someone become a devil? Not that I want to. I just want to know that if I touch a certain artifact or something like that I'd be forcibly turned into one. Issei clarified. You're either born into it or reincarnated into one. Kaneko voiced as she began to look at the kitchen. Issei followed her gaze and noticed she was looking at his refrigerator. Are you hungry? Issei asked dryly, earning a narrowed eye glare from the white-haired girl. Yes. Kaneko admitted quietly. You can check for anything you want. Issei voiced as he motioned to the fridge. He lost most of his hostility after learning more about devils. He'd still be cautious around her, but starving her would just be rude. Plus he doubted she'd try and kill him with food. After a few minutes Kaneko came back with a plate full of sweets, getting a raised eyebrow from Issei. Kaneko moved the sweets out of Issei's reach protectively. You really don't have to do that. I wouldn't take it from you. Issei stated, causing Kaneko to narrow her eyes slightly before she sat on the couch and placed the plate of sweets in her lap. Okay, you said the devils were born or reincarnated into one, right? Issei asked, getting a nod from the white-haired girl. Then which one are you? He questioned. Reincarnated. Kaneko stated before she began to nibble on the sweets. So you were a human before? Issei asked. No. Kaneko quickly replied. Then Issei began to ask. I don't want to talk about it. Kaneko said forcefully, interrupting Issei's question. The two sat in awkward silence for a few minutes. Issei, you said you were a hunter. What is that? Kaneko asked curiously. Hunters are humans that hunt down supernatural creatures and save normal people from monsters. Issei informed. Why? Kaneko asked. Why would humans risk their lives for that? She clarified. There are a few reasons. Some people are families who survive a monster attack, live on and learn. They hunt down monsters so others don't feel their pain. Others are raised into it by a family member who survived. Some do it because they think it's the right thing to do. And some do it for revenge. Issei listed off. And that journal. Kaneko voiced as she pointed to the journal in Issei's hands. A hunter's journal. Issei stated. A record of every being I've ever fought and killed. A friend of mine suggested I write everything down. In case I was to die and I had a family or another hunter needed help. This journal contains everything I know about the supernatural. Issei informed. What kind of things have you fought? Kaneko asked curiously. Oh, you know the standard werewolves, wraiths, changelings, ukami, those kinds of beings. Issei voiced uncaringly. That's pretty rad. Kaneko replied with a slight nod. From what she knew, werewolves and ukami were pretty strong. She had no idea what a wraith and changeling was though. Issei glanced at his clock and noticed it was getting late before he focused on Kaneko. Look, Kaneko. I apologize for how I overreacted. Issei voiced genuinely. And I'm sorry for trying to exercise you. He added while looking down slightly. It's fine. Kaneko replied. If I were in your position I would have done the same thing. She stated. Thanks, it's getting late and I'm sure you have a family that's worried for you. Issei said before he noticed Kaneko's face adopted a melancholic look. Oh, sorry. Issei apologized again. It's alright, you didn't know. Kaneko said quietly as she stood up and began to walk to the door. Ah, Kaneko. Issei announced, getting the short girl's attention. This was nice. Issei admitted. Apart from the whole misunderstanding, everything was good. I hope we can do it again, apart from the exorcism. Issei voiced. I'd like that. Kaneko started with a slight nod. Hey can you keep the whole hunter thing a secret? Issei asked, causing Kaneko to look away for a second. Yeah. Kaneko replied before she left Issei's apartment. As soon as she was gone, Issei shot up and looked for his phone. After a few seconds Issei found his phone and dialed a number. Hey Garth. Issei voiced. Yes, it's me Yes I realize that this is a long distance call, I'll pay for it. Yes dude, now listen, you never believe what the hell just happened. Issei began. As soon as Kaneko left Issei's apartment a crimson symbol formed under her before she vanished. Kaneko reappeared in the Occult Research Club building and noticed Rias, Akeno and Kiba in the same room. My Kaneko-chan, did you have a fun date? Akeno asked teasingly. Yes. Kaneko replied uncaringly. So is Issei a threat? Rias questioned. He's human. Kaneko responded, getting a nod from Rias. So that dark aura he has. It must be some sort of sacred gear then. Rias muttered to herself. So you want to recruit him, President? Kiba questioned. Possibly, we'd have to wait for the fallen angels to make their move, or we could have Kaneko try to convince him. Rias thought out loud, causing Kaneko to look at Rias dryly. She knew Issei would ever agree to become a devil, or at the very least it would be incredibly hard to convince him. Kaneko watched as Riaz began to think intently inside. I really hope that I don't have to do anything. The white-haired girl thought. Issei stared at his phone. His talk with Garth had been informative. While he told one of his only friends about his encounter with the devil, Garth gave back some information in return. It seemed about a few weeks ago Dean Winchester was killed by a hellhound and was dragged to hell. He met the guy a few times, had some laughs, killed some monsters. He thought Dean was a pretty cool guy and he was one of those people who helped out the younger generation. Well, Dean first tried to dissuade Issei from the hunter job but eventually gave up and began to help him. Issei sighed, staring at his phone. Dean was one of the people that helped him get off his feet in the hunter business. Issei glanced at the door Kaneko left through, then down at his phone. Is it possible? Issei muttered to himself. No, not yet anyways. Issei said. He couldn't go to Kaneko and ask her to help break Dean out of hell. Well, he thought she was cute and trustworthy, he can't put his complete trust in someone he only knew for a short time. After a few minutes Issei's phone vibrated, causing the teen to grab it. After he flipped the phone open, Issei saw he had a text with a location and a name. Duty calls. Issei said to himself before he retrieved his pistol and pocketed it. The teen left his apartment to take care of the hit he'd been hired to do. Thanks for watching this video. Part 1 is over. If you really enjoy this video, like, subscribe, and comment down below and turn on that bell notification. And also check out the playlist that I have created and enjoy. Link is in the description. See you in the next video. Goodbye.